When you think of Australia, what comes to mind? Kangaroos, the Opera House, or creatures that could kill you with just a look? There's a famous joke on the internet. Everything in Australia wants to kill you. But is that actually true? Is Australia really the most dangerous country in the world? Let's find out today. Hello, I'm Jarrah, and this is Jarrah Discovery, where you'll find the most fascinating, mysterious, and bizarre stories about Australia. If you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Part 1. Deadly Animals. Welcome to Australia, where everything seems to want to kill you. When people ask, what's dangerous in Australia? Most instantly think of snakes. And yep, they're not wrong. Snakes here don't mess around. Australia is home to some of the most venomous snakes on the planet. One of the most infamous, the inland taipan, also nicknamed the fierce snake. A single bite from this bad boy carries enough venom to kill over 100 grown adults. Sounds terrifying, right? But plot twist, this snake is super shy and lives deep in the desert, so it almost never crosses paths with humans. The real issue? The less venomous ones tend to live closer to where people are. Like the eastern brown snake, commonly found in suburban areas, and yep, it's been responsible for several fatalities in the past. But before you start imagining snakes slithering into your bed, let's clear something up. On average, only about 2 people die from snake bites in Australia each year. That's shockingly low, considering the dangerous reputation the country has. The truth is, Australia has an excellent emergency response system, and Aussies are taught from a young age how to deal with snakes. So yeah, people here are surprisingly chill about it. Now, if you're scared of snakes, sorry, but the next part's worse. Spiders. Out of hundreds of spider species in Australia, one used to send chills down the world's spine. The funnel web spider, especially the Sydney kind. It's small, black, hairy, and will go for you if it feels threatened. Its bite can knock out an adult in 15 minutes. Feels like something straight out of a horror movie, right? But here's the wild and kind of amazing part. Since 1981, when an anti-venom was developed, nobody has died from a funnel web bite. In fact, Australia even has specialist teams that go around collecting spiders so their venom can be used to make more antidote. Now let's head to the ocean, where the Aussie wildlife continues to keep things spicy. In the water, you might come across something almost invisible, the box jellyfish. It's tiny, transparent, and totally unsuspecting, until you touch it. A sting from this thing can stop your heart, and in some cases, death can happen in just a few minutes. That's why in northern Australia, some beaches are fully fenced off during jellyfish season, to keep swimmers safe. Also lurking in those waters, sharks. But don't let Hollywood fool you. Sharks in Australia aren't just randomly attacking people for fun. Shark bites do happen, sure, about 10 to 20 incidents a year. But actual deaths? Less than the number of people killed by falling coconuts. No joke. Finally, if you head up to the tropical north, you might run into saltwater crocodiles, the biggest reptiles on Earth. These units can grow up to 6 meters long, weigh over half a ton, and will absolutely come at you if you wander into their turf. There have been tragic incidents, especially with tourists unaware of the local rules. But here's the thing. Every single croc zone in Australia is clearly marked with warning signs and safety tips. It's not like you're walking into danger blind. So, yeah, at this point you might be thinking Australia's just a giant death trap waiting to happen. But it's really not like that. These creatures are real, and yes, they can kill. But Australia isn't chaos. It's a modern country with clear safety systems, fast medical responses, and a population that's grown up knowing how to respect nature. Here, if you respect the wild leaves you alone. Cruel nature, the silent enemy. While snakes, spiders, or sharks can immediately scare you with their ferocity and clear danger, nature in Australia is dangerous in a much quieter way. It doesn't roar, it doesn't hiss. But when it rises, it can engulf an entire region in fire, floodwaters, or a drought lasting for years. In the summer of 2019 to 2020, Australia witnessed one of the worst environmental disasters in history, the bushfires known as Black Summer. Over 18 million hectares of forest were scorched, thousands of homes were destroyed, and most tragically, more than 3 billion wild animals perished. A number so unbelievable, yet it was confirmed by leading environmental research organizations. Charred koalas clung to tree trunks. Kangaroos ran desperately through the sea of flames. It was no longer wild nature. It was a fight for survival. But it didn't stop there. When the fires began to subside, some areas were then covered by enormous sandstorms. The sky turned a fiery orange-red, like a scene from a movie set on Mars. Sand covered rooftops, obscured vision, and crept through every crack. In that moment, people in some small towns could no longer distinguish between day and night. Nature in Australia seems to have no sense of balance. In some places, droughts stretch on endlessly, with trees turning to ash, soil cracking, and lakes drying up. Then, just weeks later, the same areas are hit by sudden torrential rains, sweeping away roads, homes, livestock, and the people's belief that nature has finally calmed down. And then there's another silent enemy, the temperature. During peak summer days, many areas in Australia recorded temperatures soaring above 50 degrees Celsius. This was no longer just hot weather as we know it. It was the kind of heat that could melt asphalt, stop electronics from working, and cause exhaustion in humans after just a few minutes outside. The elderly, children, and those working outdoors are the most vulnerable. At this point, you might be thinking, wow, Australia really must be the most dangerous country, no joke. But wait, the story doesn't end here. Because there's another perspective, one that the media rarely addresses, which is Australian society really as dangerous as its nature? Crime and evil. Is the greatest danger in Australia humans themselves? When we think of the word danger, we usually think of nature first, those tangible, obvious threats. But sometimes, the thing that scares people the most comes from other people. In Australia, crime rates generally do not rank among the highest in the world, but that doesn't mean everything is as peaceful as a tourist postcard. To be honest, violent crime in Australia is quite rare, especially when compared to many other Western countries. Mass killings or shootings hardly ever happen. Gun ownership is strictly controlled. Since the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, the government has implemented the largest gun buyback and control campaign in modern history. The result? The number of shootings drastically decreased almost immediately. But that's the big picture story. What about at the street level? Some large cities like Sydney or Melbourne still have areas considered less safe at night, particularly places where drunkenness, disorderly behavior, or gang violence might occur. However, these areas are usually well known to locals, and they tend to avoid them when necessary. For tourists or newcomers, just knowing a few basic rules, like not walking alone in quiet areas late at night or avoiding confrontation with drunken individuals, can help you feel safe when strolling through the city at night. Another significant issue is domestic violence and sexual assault, especially in remote areas or vulnerable communities. These are topics frequently addressed in the media and national campaigns, because Australians do not shy away from the truth. They face the issue head-on to find solutions. Psychological support systems, helplines, and victim protection organizations are robust, and these topics are even taught in schools from an early age. However, there is a type of crime that few talk about, but it has a huge impact: cybercrime and online scams. In the digital age, Australians, particularly the elderly, often fall victim to sophisticated scams. Australia is one of the countries with the highest rates of online fraud in the world. One wrong click can wipe out thousands of dollars in an instant. But let's look at the numbers. Australia's murder rate is less than 1 per 100,000 people annually, much lower than in the US, Russia, or even some European countries. So, if you ask, is it safe to visit Australia? The answer is very safe, as long as you're not naive enough to give your bank password to a stranger or decide to get drunk in a slum area at 2 a.m. Accidents and life risks. The most dangerous things are the ones you least expect when people think of Australia. And the word dangerous. They often imagine poisonous snakes in the toilet, sharks leaping out of the sea, or tornadoes lifting kangaroos into the sky. But the truth is, what causes the most injuries or fatalities in Australia doesn't come from nature or crime. It comes from everyday life. Believe it or not, falling downstairs, slipping in the bathroom, or tripping while gardening are the most common causes of injuries in Australia. The National Healthcare System reports that each year, hundreds of thousands of people are hospitalized for falling inside their homes, especially the elderly. Even a slight fall can lead to hip fractures, complications, and sometimes death. And we can't forget traffic accidents. Even though Australia has modern infrastructure and wide roads, the vast distances between cities make long drives inevitable. And that's when the risks increase. A moment of drowsiness while driving on a highway through the desert with no streetlights or rest stops in sight could be the last moment of your life. That's why in Australia, signs reading "drowsy drivers die" are placed everywhere. And if you think, I'll just walk instead of driving, don't rest easy just yet. In some major cities, accidents involving pedestrians and electric bikes are on the rise. Meanwhile, the use of garden tools and home power equipment, chainsaws, drills, lawnmowers, also often results in what-on-earth accidents. It's even been reported that falling coconuts have caused fatalities. No joke. In some northern regions, people cut down coconuts from tall trees to prevent the risk of them falling on someone's head, because a fall from 10 meters or more can cause brain injuries. Seriously. In Australia, you don't mess around with coconuts. So, in a country with wild nature, crime, and harsh climates, the thing that causes you the most harm is a slippery staircase and pruning shears. It may sound funny, but it's a reminder. Real danger doesn't come from the horrific or dramatic images the media often paints. True danger often comes from the small, familiar, and seemingly harmless things. How dangerous is Australia? So, after everything we've explored, from venomous snakes hiding behind doors to a red sandstorm from another planet, from 50°C temperatures to slips in the bathroom, is Australia really the most dangerous country in the world? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if you only look at the surface, the bizarre creatures, extreme weather, and sensational news. Australia is easily misunderstood because what makes it famous is often the scariest thing. But no, if you actually live here, feel the place with your own feet and heart. Australia is one of the countries with the highest quality of life in the world, with a high average life expectancy, top-notch healthcare, education, and welfare systems. Crime is low, the people are friendly, and nature, though wild, is incredibly magnificent. The truth is, every place in the world has dangers, just in different forms. In some countries, you fear guns. In Australia, you fear spiders as big as your hand. The danger in Australia doesn't come from social chaos, but from the primal nature of the land. And if you're careful and informed, what scares others can actually make you love Australia more than ever. Because here, even the wind has its own story. Every animal, every patch of land, every coral reef is part of the stunning wilderness that's becoming increasingly rare in the world. You've just seen a slice of Australia, not through the lens of tourism, but through the eye of truth. If you found this video helped you understand Australia better, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. What do you think? Is Australia really that scary? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from Jarrah Discovery, where you explore Australia in ways no one else has ever told.